The first time I saw my sister smile after our father's funeral, I knew something was wrong. Not the grief smile, the one people give you when they don't know what to say and their face does something weird to fill the silence. This was different. This was the smile of someone who had just gotten away with something. We were standing in the marble foyer of the Manhattan high-rise that had been in our family for 40 years, the one our grandfather built with nothing but a tool belt and a stubborn back, and she was wearing our mother's pearls. Not borrowed. Wearing them like they'd always been hers. I remember the way the afternoon light cut through the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning everything gold and cruel, and I remember thinking that grief was supposed to feel like a wound, but this felt like a surgery. Like someone had gone in while I was sleeping and removed something vital, something I wouldn't miss until I tried to stand. My husband touched my elbow, that gentle pressure he always used when he could feel me hardening, and I realized I'd stopped breathing. The twins were at home with the nanny, both of them fighting fevers, and I'd left them because my sister said we needed to talk about the estate, about dividing things fairly, about honoring Dad's memory the right way. I was 34 years old, mother of 2 beautiful boys who needed heart surgery we couldn't quite afford yet, and I was standing in my childhood home watching my older sister inventory the silver like she was already calculating its resale value. And that was the moment I knew, the real revenge begins now. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in gaslighting. My sister, Elena, had always been the polished one, the one who could smile at a board meeting and make grown men apologize for things they hadn't done yet. She ran a boutique investment firm out of a glass office in Midtown, and her clients were the kind of people who flew private to tell you they were down to earth. I was the younger sister, the one who married a high school English teacher and spent weekends coaching soccer and worrying about medical bills. Our parents had never said it outright, but everyone knew, Elena was the success story. I was the consolation prize. And when my father died of a sudden heart attack 6 months ago, leaving behind an estate everyone assumed would be split evenly between his 2 daughters, Elena became the executor, the gatekeeper, the one who knew where all the bodies were buried. Financially speaking, the first red flag was invisible unless you knew where to look. I'd asked her about the twins' trust funds, the ones my father had set up when they were born, enough to cover their education, their medical needs, a little breathing room for when life got hard. She told me not to worry, that everything was being handled, that probate took time and I should focus on my family. I was standing in her kitchen when she said it, a Saturday afternoon in October, rain streaking the windows of her Tribeca penthouse, and I watched her pour herself a glass of something expensive while I held a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. She asked about the boys, about their surgery, about how we were managing. I told her the truth. We were drowning. The insurance was fighting us, the hospital wanted a deposit we didn't have, and my husband was teaching summer school and grading papers at midnight just to keep us afloat. She nodded, her face arranged in perfect sympathy, and then she told me about her upcoming trip to Aspen. That was the moment I should have known. But when it's your sister, when it's the girl who held your hair back when you got sick at 16 and drove you to college and cried at your wedding, you don't see the knife until it's already in you. I started digging because I had no other choice. The boys needed surgery before the end of the year, and I was running out of options. I called our family attorney, a quiet man named Richard who'd known me since I was in pigtails, and I asked him to walk me through the estate again. His hesitation on the phone told me everything. He said he'd send over the documents, that I should review them carefully, that sometimes things got overlooked in the chaos of grief. The documents arrived by secure email at 11 that night. I read them in bed while my husband slept beside me, his hand draped over my hip like he could hold me together even in unconsciousness. And that's when I saw it. The inheritance wasn't split evenly. It wasn't split at all. My father had signed a codicil 3 weeks before he died, a legal amendment that transferred control of the entire estate to Elena as sole beneficiary. The trust funds for the twins had been dissolved. The money moved into an account I'd never heard of, an offshore shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. The signature on the document was my father's, but the date was wrong. He'd been in the hospital that day, unconscious after his first heart attack, unable to sign anything. I pulled up the hospital records, the ones I'd kept because I couldn't bear to delete them from my phone, and I matched the dates. He was intubated. He was dying. He wasn't signing anything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark of my living room, watching the rain hit the window, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Something that recognized, finally, that the person I thought I knew had never really existed. The sister who cried at my wedding had been crying because she was losing access, losing control. The sister who held my hair back had been calculating, even then, even at 16, how to keep me close enough to watch but far enough to hurt. I started collecting evidence the way some people collect seashells, methodically, quietly, with an attention to detail that surprised even me. I went back through 10 years of family finances, through joint accounts and holiday gifts, and the time Elena had offered to help my parents with their taxes. I found discrepancies everywhere. Money that had been transferred out of my father's accounts in small enough amounts to avoid reporting thresholds. Investments that had been sold without his knowledge, the proceeds rerouted to companies Elena controlled. And then I found the audio. It was on an old digital recorder my father kept in his study, the kind he used to dictate letters before he learned to type. I'd gone back to the house to pack up his personal effects, to salvage what I could before Elena sold the place to developers, and I found it in the back of his desk drawer, under a stack of photographs from our childhood. The battery was dead, but the memory card was intact. I took it home and spent 3 hours trying to find a way to play it, my hands shaking, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. When the file finally opened, when I heard my father's voice for the first time in months, I broke. He was talking to Elena. The recording was dated 2 days before he died, which meant he must have left it running accidentally, forgotten it was on, captured something he never intended anyone to hear. "I'm not changing the trust," he was saying, his voice weak but clear. "The girls get equal shares. That's how it's always been." Elena's voice was calm, reasonable, the voice she used when she wanted you to believe you were being irrational. "Dad, you're not thinking clearly. I've managed your money better than anyone. I've grown your portfolio. She'll just waste it on medical bills and soccer camps. You want your legacy to go to soccer camps. I want my grandsons to have a future," he said. "They need that surgery. They need their mother to be able to take care of them." "And she can," Elena said smoothly. "With my help. But if you give her control, she'll make mistakes. She always does. You know that." There was a long silence. I could hear the hospital machines beeping in the background, the soft hiss of oxygen. "I know you love her," my father said finally. "But I also know you've always resented her. I'm not blind, Elena. I see how you watch her. I see how you wait." "I'm not waiting for anything," Elena said, and her voice had changed now, harder, colder. "I'm protecting what's mine. What's always been mine." She got the attention, the love, the perfect little family. I got the responsibility. I got to be the one who held everything together while she played house. So yes, I resent her. And yes, I deserve more. Another silence. Longer this time. "If you don't sign," Elena said quietly, "I'll have to prove you're not competent. I have doctors who will testify. I have nurses who will say you were confused, that you didn't understand what you were signing. You'll lose everything anyway, and she'll still get nothing. At least this way, it's clean." My father's voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "You'd do that to your own sister?" "I'd do anything," Elena said, "for what's mine." The recording ended. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, the boys crying in the next room, my husband calling my name from somewhere far away. When I finally moved, when I finally stood up and walked to the window and looked out at the city that had raised us both, I knew what I had to do. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted my children to live. Because I wanted them to grow up knowing that their mother didn't just lie down and let the wolves eat. The plan took shape slowly, the way ice forms on a river, invisible until it's solid enough to walk on. I couldn't go to the police yet, not without more evidence, not without making sure Elena couldn't talk her way out of it the way she always did. I needed to corner her publicly, to expose her in a way that left no room for spin, no room for her charm to work its magic. I needed a stage. And I knew exactly where to find one. The Medical Excellence Awards were 3 months away, an annual black-tie gala honoring the city's top healthcare professionals. Elena was on the board. She'd be there, glittering in some designer gown, accepting congratulations for her charitable work while my children waited for surgery she'd stolen from them. And my husband, the man I'd loved since college, the man who'd held my hand through every miscarriage and every triumph, would be there too. Not as my husband, as hers. I discovered that particular betrayal slowly, the way you discover a cavity, through intermittent pain that eventually becomes constant. The late nights at work. The whispered phone calls. The way he stopped meeting my eyes when Elena's name came up. I'd confronted him 2 months after my father died, and he'd told me everything with the hollow relief of someone who's been waiting to confess. It had started at a charity event, he said. She'd pursued him. He'd been weak. It meant nothing. It meant everything. And now, because of the financial mess and the legal fees and the sheer impossibility of separating our lives, I had to see her at every family gathering, at every holiday, at every moment when she could smile at me and know she'd taken everything. The night of the awards arrived cold and clear, the kind of December evening where the city looks like it's been carved from ice and light. I'd spent weeks preparing, months, really, ever since I found that recording. I'd made copies. I'd stored them in places she'd never think to look. I'd talked to Richard, the family attorney, and to a journalist I trusted, and to the board members who would be in that ballroom tonight. I'd told them enough to make them curious, not enough to make them warn her. And I'd had my dress altered to hide a small digital recorder in the seam, the same model my father had used, because some things are too perfect to be coincidence. The ballroom of the Grand Imperial Hotel was everything you'd expect from a night like this. Crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Tables draped in white linen, each one a small island of silver and glass. The murmur of 500 conversations, the clink of champagne flutes, the soft strains of a string quartet playing something that sounded expensive. I stood near the back, invisible in navy blue, watching the stage where the awards would be presented. Watching my husband stand beneath those chandeliers in his tailored tuxedo, his polished smile brighter than the stage lights. Beside him was her. Elena. Young, sculpted, smirking in a red gown that screamed, "Look at me, I won." They didn't see me. They weren't looking for me. I was the ghost at the feast, the inconvenient reminder of everything they'd destroyed. I watched my husband lean down to whisper something in her ear, watched her laugh and touch his arm, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even the phantom pain of loss. I'd already grieved him. I'd already grieved her. What I felt now was something else entirely, something that looked forward instead of back. The awards ceremony began with the usual speeches, the usual standing ovations, the usual self-congratulatory nonsense that made these events bearable only for the open bar. I waited. I watched. And when they called Elena to the stage to accept an award for her philanthropic work in healthcare funding, I moved. She stood at the podium, radiant, humble in the way of people who've never known real humility. She thanked the board, she thanked the hospital, she thanked her family for their support. She looked directly at my husband, who sat at the front table beaming like a proud father, and she said, "And to my partner, who stood by me through everything, thank you for believing in me." The audience applauded. The chandeliers glittered like 1,000 watching eyes. And I walked down the center aisle, my heels silent on the thick carpet, until I reached the stage. Elena saw me first. Her smile flickered, just for a moment, before she recovered. "Isabella," she said into the microphone, her voice warm with false surprise. "What a lovely surprise. Would you like to say a few words?" I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every eye in the room on my back. The string quartet had stopped playing. The murmur of conversation had died. Even the waiters had frozen, trays suspended, watching the drama unfold. I took the microphone from her hand. She let it go reluctantly, her fingers brushing mine in a way that felt like a warning. "Thank you all for being here," I said calmly. "I won't take long. I just have a few things to share about tonight's honoree." Elena's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer, as if to reclaim the microphone, but I held up a hand. "My sister and I have a complicated history," I continued. "But tonight I want to talk about something specific. Something that happened 3 weeks before our father died." I saw the color drain from her face, saw her glance toward the exits, calculating her escape. But there were too many people, too many eyes, too many phones already recording. I reached into my clutch and held up the small digital recorder. "This is my father's voice," I said. "Recorded 2 days before his death." He didn't know it was recording. He didn't know he was about to have a conversation that would change everything. I pressed play. The ballroom was absolutely silent as my father's voice filled the space, weak and clear and heartbreakingly familiar. We heard him ask about the trust. We heard Elena's calm, reasonable manipulation. We heard her threaten to declare him incompetent, to take everything, to leave me with nothing. And we heard her say, at the end, "I'd do anything for what's mine." When the recording stopped, the silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Elena stood frozen, her face a mask of shock and rage and something else, something I'd never seen in her before. Fear. "That's not," she started. "It's not what?" I asked quietly. "It's not true? It's not your voice? It's not the reason my children can't have the surgery they need? It's not the reason I've lost everything while you've stood on stages accepting awards for charity you stole from our dying father?" The audience shifted. I could hear whispers now, the first ripples of a wave that would become a tsunami. I turned to face the crowd, to face the cameras, to face the board members I'd spoken to weeks ago. "I've already filed a police report," I said. "I've already submitted all the evidence to the district attorney's office. The offshore accounts, the forged signatures, the years of financial manipulation. It's all there. And it's all over." I looked at my husband then, really looked at him, and saw the man I'd married buried somewhere beneath the terror in his eyes. He stood up, took a step toward the stage, stopped. He didn't know what to do. He'd never known what to do. That was the problem. "You can have her," I said to him, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You can have the money, the penthouse, the whole glittering life she promised you. But you should know, she doesn't have anything anymore. And neither do you." Security guards were moving toward the stage now, but not toward me. Toward Elena. She tried to run, tried to push through the crowd, but there were too many people, too many questions, too many hands reaching for her. I watched her disappear into a sea of shocked faces, watched the cameras flash and the reporters surge, and I felt nothing but a deep, quiet peace. I walked off that stage the same way I'd walked on, slowly, deliberately, my heels echoing across the marble. No one stopped me. No one tried. I was through the ballroom doors and into the lobby before anyone could gather themselves enough to ask a question. The night air hit my face like a blessing. The city sparkled around me, indifferent and beautiful, and for the first time in months, I could breathe. The twins' surgery is scheduled for next month. The money is back where it belongs, frozen by court order until the trial, which means we have enough for now, enough to keep going, enough to hope. Elena's been arrested, released on bail, arrested again when they found more evidence. Our husband, I can't even call him mine anymore, filed for divorce the week after the gala. He asked me to take him back, begged me, cried in my kitchen while the boys slept upstairs. I listened to everything he had to say, and then I asked him to leave. He did. He always did what he was told. If you've ever been betrayed by family, you know exactly what that silence feels like. The space where their voice used to be. The absence that's heavier than any presence. You know what it's like to question every memory, every happy moment, every time they smiled and you thought it meant love. You know that the worst part isn't the loss. It's the wondering if they were ever really there at all. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protecting from. And sometimes the only way to save yourself is to become someone they never expected you to be. Someone who fights back. Someone who wins. I think about my father often now. About the life he built and the daughter who tore it down. I think about what he'd say if he could see me now, standing in the wreckage with my children's hands in mine, not broken, not bitter, just alive and moving forward. I think he'd be proud. I think he'd understand that some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight costs you everything you thought you wanted. The trial starts in 6 weeks. I'll be there, in the front row, watching. Not for revenge anymore. For justice. For my boys. For the father who tried to protect me even when he couldn't. For the version of myself that sat in the dark and listened to her sister destroy her and decided, finally, to destroy back. And when it's over, when the last gavel falls and the last camera leaves, I'll go home to my children. I'll hold them close. I'll tell them that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who stays. It's about who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. I'd love to know what you would have done. Would you have exposed her publicly or taken a different path? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if stories about family betrayal and hard-won justice speak to something in you, hit that subscribe button. There are so many more dark family thrillers coming, and trust me, the truth is always stranger and crueler than fiction. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that you can survive anything, even the people who were supposed to love you most. Because family betrayal hurts the deepest, but healing? Healing feels even better.